It's not all glossy retail hubs and heaps of noodles. The first Panda Express was a totally different dining experience, and everyone's favorite dish wasn't even an option. The first Panda Express was established in Glendale, California, but the concept was born in Pasadena. That's because a decade prior to the chain's debut, Andrew Churn was busy working at his first business, Panda Inn. The Chinese eatery was a far cry from the fast food Panda Express would become known for. It had upscale flair, offering traditional entrees in a refined sit-down environment. Panda Inn was a true family-operated business. Churn's father, Ming Tsai, oversaw the cooking, while the rest of the family, including Andrew, waited tables and bonded with the customers who came in. They all worked without pay.
What I say about Panda is we are the largest mom-and-pop Chinese restaurant in the world.
One of Panda Inn's specialties was mushu pork, a stir-fried pork entree with egg and vegetables in a ginger soy sauce that resembles the black pepper chicken or Beijing beef sizzling in woks today. Panda Inn, with its elevated cuisine and classy ambiance, is very different from its fast casual cousin. The 1980s was a rad time for fashion, music, and hanging out at the mall. Although food courts account for a small portion of the chain's footprint today, that's where Panda Express got started. The first Panda Express opened at the Glendale Galleria, a retail haven in Los Angeles County.
I hate working the theater. All the action's on the other side of the mall.
It isn't hard to understand why the Churns decided on the mall as their first stop following Panda Inn. As fast food became more central to American life, customers sought out quick, easy options that were as tasty as anything served in a sit-down restaurant. In fact, the eatery's name signifies this. An express restaurant implies quick takeout service. In other words, Panda Express is perfect after a stressful try-on session at Macy's. Los Angeles runs on buzz, and it's not uncommon for business owners to mingle with the city's well-connected residents. For the Panda Express founders, this was the Donahue family. While steering the UCLA Bruins football team to victory may be Terry Donahue's lasting legacy, the coach played an important role in popularizing Panda Express. One of the more fascinating footnotes in the chain's lore is how the sports icon planted the idea for a casual Chinese joint at the Glendale Galleria, which the Donahue family happened to own. The story goes that Donahue was a regular at Panda Inn, where he got to know the owners firsthand and mentioned that free space had opened up in the food court at the Galleria. Andrew Churn jumped on the invitation and decided to shoot his shot with a Panda Express kiosk.
Man, we got a great place. Let's rock and roll.
40 years and thousands of stores later, it's safe to say the move paid off. The food Panda Express makes is generally viewed as American-style Chinese, but upon closer examination, it blends the fiery notes of Mandarin and Szechuan flavors. This fusion wasn't the norm in the early 1980s. Most of the dishes served in Southern California at the time came from the Cantonese tradition out of South China. Cantonese food pretty much defines the typical Chinese takeout fare enjoyed by the masses then and now. Mildly spiced amalgamations of steamed rice, grilled vegetables, and meats like chicken and pork are just a couple of the cuisine's defining features.
Kinda good. Need a little hot sauce, but it's kinda good though.
The downside of Cantonese cuisine's popularity is that it massively oversaturated the market. Andrew Churn encountered this problem early on in the Panda Inn era. He realized he needed to find a way to distinguish his eatery from the rest, so he shook up the ingredients and spices and leaned on specialties diners wouldn't find elsewhere. It didn't take long for that first Panda Express to carve out a name for itself and create a loyal customer base of hungry shoppers looking for a bite to eat while shopping. At Panda Inn, Churn would have to turn away customers because there were no free tables, but not at Panda Express. The convenience made the new spot an instant sensation. From the moment it opened for business at the food court, the takeout spot was busy, busy, busy. Still, there might be a wait for your entrees, especially if you brave the lunch and dinner rush. Part of the reason some people detest malls is, of course, the crowds. And yet, the jam-packed environment that that can be so disorienting is exactly what helped Panda Express grow into the enterprise it is today. In fact, in an interview with the chain's in-house podcast, Panda Express, Churn praised the mall format for cultivating the foot traffic the business needed to thrive. Because malls attract patrons for a whole host of activities, trying on clothes, say, or purchasing gadgets, potential diners don't need to be flagged down in order to check out a new restaurant. Panda Express is a mega chain these days, with a workforce of almost 40,000 employees. But in the early days, the restaurant's staff numbered around 10. It's easy to forget that Panda Express was once a mom-and-pop establishment, and nothing illustrates that point more than the image of a skeleton crew churning out egg rolls and noodles by the platter. Only 10 people made up the company back then, and those were the same people who cooked, cleaned, and handled the non-stop flow of shoppers with an urgent need for an egg roll. Most chains have double the employees that Panda Express had in 1983, around 17 per store, give or take, which should give you an idea of the difficulty the brand new business endured. But it didn't take long to find its footing. Despite the sort of pressure cooker climate that makes plenty of restaurateurs throw in the towel, starting off with such a small team wasn't the disaster you'd assume it to be. In fact, Churn takes great pride in the way his fledgling company was able to ride through the chaos, and he fondly recalled the thrilling atmosphere of the restaurant on its first day of business. In this day and age, fast food workers punch your order into a computer system. It's fast and requires no extra work to communicate the details to the back of house. This system, referred to as point of sales, was how Panda Express operated back in the early 1980s. In fact, the Glendale restaurant would have probably been one of the few eateries using such advanced technology. Peggy Churn is viewed as one half of the Panda Express leadership team, but really, it was her engineering experience that grew the mall staple into a fast food empire. With a background in math and computer science, she used her skills to whip up a software tool for the restaurant. Not only did the digital system allow for order taking via screen, but it also streamlined automated functions for time-intensive tasks, like supply tracing and data analysis. As with any technological advance, there were hurdles. It took time for employees to get the hang of the new way of working, but once the wrinkles had been ironed out, dishing out meal after meal became incredibly smooth. Since Panda Inn was the blueprint for Panda Express, you might be wondering which elements of the original model were tweaked to fit the Express version. Andrew Churn's father, Min Sai, commanded the kitchen at Panda Inn. The dishes he created formed the foundation of Panda Express's full menu, but many of the Panda Inn entrees were simplified to make for quicker preparation in the fast food arena, and tweaking the dishes was no walk in the park. To fit the casual vibe of a food court, the entrees needed to be hot, fresh, and ready for customers to dig into. Many of the menu changes were implemented after the restaurant had already opened to the public. The Churns had to assess which items could thrive on a steam table indefinitely, or end up sad and soggy, then adapt. Today, Panda Express has a strict practice of making frequent batches of food. Presumably, they learned from the mushy failures of the past. If orange chicken is your go-to Panda Express order, then join the club. It's sticky, tangy, and crunchy in all the right ways. And it's undoubtedly the crown jewel of the menu. No other dish compares in terms of the pure volume of orders. But it wasn't an option for first-time patrons at the Glendale Galleria. The first Panda Express predates orange chicken's appearance on the menu by about 4 years. That's right, 4 long years passed before the iconic entree finally made the lineup.
And with Chef Andy Cow's creation of the original orange chicken in 1987, Panda Express would become unstoppable.
Today, orange chicken is Panda Express's signature item, but when it was initially conceived by the chain's in-house chef Andy Cow, it was little more than a local specialty. For the culinary history buffs out there, the entree originally came out of Hawaii, where a few restaurants served it before it went national. And the lucky locals eating their orange chicken before the rest of the country weren't getting the version we've grown familiar with. Early incarnations were made with bone-in poultry, as opposed to the juicy, all-meat nuggets coated in breading we crave today. It's normal to see Panda Express menu items come and go, but with a few exceptions, such as the orange chicken, the items you'd see at the food court in the restaurant's early days aren't far from the chain's offerings 40 years later. Whether it's stir-fried pork or mountains of chow mein, the same delicious options have been in rotation for as long as the company's been inside a food court. Kung Pao chicken is an example of an entree that's been on the menu for years, and it's a staple for a good reason. The dish embodies the signature Szechuan heat and spice. Perhaps the only difference is that today the dish carries a Walk Smart label that marks it as a nutritionally sound option. Other than that, the recipe of peanuts and chicken tossed with chopped peppers and zucchini, an exclusive touch according to Churn, has stayed pretty much the same for 40 years. Nowadays, Panda Express isn't the only chain slinging egg rolls to the masses. Chinese chain restaurants like Pei Wei and P.F. Chang's, among others, also specialize in Asian food with a side of convenience and accessibility. Nor was the Glendale-based restaurant the first Chinese restaurant by any means, but at the time, it very well could have been your first taste of Chinese chain food. Quite simply, the brand was the first to pull it off in the United States and find major success. The fast food sphere has really evolved since the 1980s. For example, before Panda Express, the mall food court would have been dominated by quick bite offerings like pretzels, hot dogs, and pizza by the slice, along with a few relatively rare Greek establishments. While most of the foods offered at the food courts in the 1980s would have made for satisfying snacks, Panda Express was one of the few chains offering full plates of food, meals that included rice, veggies, and noodles to food court customers at the time. The Glendale Galleria has endured as one of Southern California's top shopping destinations, and so, by proxy, has the first Panda Express. Visit the first floor, and you'll see the original serving counter. In many ways, you'll be able to chow down like it's 1983, because, for the most part, the restaurant's appearance remains markedly similar. Andrew Churn has remarked on the format before, noting that the steam tables, the build-your-own menu, and the dishes themselves are essentially the same as those that were experienced by Panda Express visitors in its early days. So whether you're a longtime Glendale resident or just happen to be in that part of town, you can still live out your mall fantasies that end, of course, with Panda Express.